How many mayors does it take to run Montreal? And insert your punchline here. As scandals rained down on Montreal's Hôtel de Ville, the city saw 3 mayors in 2013, 2 of them interim, before voters picked former Member of Parliament Denis Coderre. And all that puts a new spin on the old Toronto-Montreal rivalry. In 2013, Canada bade farewell to the penny. Former CIA operative Edward Snowden found refuge in Russia after disclosing as many as 200,000 sensitive U.S. government documents to the press. And we recently told you the story of how a catastrophic flood in High River, Alberta, decimated a town and then showed the world the extraordinary resolve, spirit, and compassion of an extraordinary community. Barely 2 weeks after the flooding began, the nation's attention was torn away from Alberta and drawn to Lac-Mégantic, a small town in southern Quebec. There, derailed tanker cars exploded, killing dozens and leveling some 30 buildings. It was Canada's worst rail disaster in a century and a half. All the while, some 8,500 kilometers away, millions of refugees struggled for a new life outside the carnage in Syria. Dave Toyson of World Vision shared with us some human faces behind those tragic headlines.
This is Tom, who is a little girl who's 9 years old. This is Thaura, she's 14 years old. This is Mohammed, and he's 10 years old. This is the youngest child. This is baby Miriam, she's 2 years old. And then this is Nadja, who is 16 years old. And they are a family living on their own here without their parents. It's really quite staggering. The mother has taken the father, they all came here as a family. The father died of a heart attack. The mother's taken him back to Syria to bury him, take care of the official papers, and now we're told she can't get back for at least a year because she's been registered with the Syrian officials. And so these children are on their own, literally on their own. They try to do a little bit of odd jobs. They pay $80 for a space like this for them to sleep each month, and really they have no way of paying for that. They are getting food vouchers. They've registered with the UNHCR, so they are getting at least basic food. But these are just examples of children who are just sliding backwards here in the middle of this disaster that they've lived through.
In April 2013, 2 bombs exploded along the route of the Boston Marathon, killing 3 and injuring hundreds. Months later, dozens died in another terrorist attack in a Kenyan shopping mall. Life and death was very much on the minds of Canadians in the fall of 2013. A video of prominent Toronto doctor Donald Lowe, taped just 8 days before he died of a brain tumor, made an impassioned case for doctor-assisted suicide. We brought that discussion to our forum, which included Dr. Balfour Mount, father of palliative care in Canada. You have been at so many bedsides. Everyone is afraid of pain and suffering as they die. Tell us how palliative care specialists respond to that fear.
We respond to the fear, first of all, by realizing that a life-limiting illness affects that person, but also the family. Family in quotation marks, the significant others. So the first thing is the unit of care isn't just the person, but the person and their loved ones. The individuals who is ill, they're the captain of the team. And then the other members of the team will be as variable as our individual lives are. If you're living in the Arctic, it'll be one reality. If you're living in downtown urban Toronto or Montreal or London, Ontario, it'll be a very different reality. Who we hope would be there would be people who are able to look to, assess, and meet the physical needs, but also the psychological, social, and spiritual needs. Whole person care.
2013 continued to teach us that in the wake of tragedy and strife grows hope and healing. We learned that when we turned this TV slot over to our youth team for a series called Love is Moving, and they introduced you to Emmanuel Jal. Once a child soldier in what is now South Sudan, he escaped with 300 other children in a journey that just 20 of them would survive. He told Love is Moving host Eternia of a desperation and a hunger so severe, he contemplated cannibalism as a means of survival.
We cannot change the way people think. I've been influenced by my mother in a lot of times, and seeing my mother pray when we run from one place to another one influenced me. And one of the occasions where I applied my mother's God was one time when we're skipping. We're a group of young people mixed with adults, and few people survived that journey. And it was the toughest moment in my life because I was tempted to eat my friend. We ran out of food, so we're depending on vultures, snails, anything we could find at that time. But when my friend was dying, so I looked at him and I told him, I'm going to eat you tomorrow. But in the thought, in the struggle during the night with my mind, I remembered how my mother used to pray. So I prayed to my mother's God and I said, God, if you're there, give me something to eat. So when I survive this part of my journey, I will give the credit back to you.
Did God give you something to eat?
Yes. My prayer was answered when a crow came, you know, at the moment when I was tempted just to eat my friend. Because you see, my senses changed. So now I sit next to a fellow human being, they smell like food to eat. And so throughout that evening, that night when I was struggling to fight this temptation, because what I was doing is, if you sleep, then you're gone. Because what I know is, when you're starving, the sleep becomes so sweet, and that's how people lose it. And so I waited until 11 in the morning, and when I was about to just lose hope, then a crow came. So the crow was shot by my friend.
The stories of 2013 are so often of hope and healing, from brokenness, and from the greatest story ever told to this. We're offering you a chance to play editor with this question. What do you think was the most important news story of 2013? Was it a political story, a trend, the environment, a natural disaster, war, terrorism? What one story do you think might rise above the others when people look back at 2013? Send us your answers by phone, email, Facebook, or Twitter. And coming up, what happened in 2013 when the king of 21st century television got hold of the greatest story ever told? He'll tell you himself when our year in review continues.